Hello. Welcome to the first Thursday of November. Excuse me. First Thursday of November, and you know that or most of you know if you're new, I'm letting you know that on the first Thursday of the month in this year, I am showing a different 12 by 12 one-sheet wonder, and making all the cards with you from start to finish, from cutting that 12 by 12 sheet all the way through to completing the finished cards. Today's one sheet wonder, you use a 12 by 12 sheet to make 9 different cards, which is a little bit unusual. I try to keep my one sheet wonders fairly simple, no stress, just fun. And oftentimes there are multiples of the same card sketch used. This time there are basically 9 different ones. So it'll be lots of fun. And trust me, it's still easy. I'm going to show you how to cut your 12 by 12 paper. And in the end, how to finish off 9 cards using all of the pieces in this one sheet of designer series paper. You will get all of the dimensions and all of the products used throughout this video. At the end of the video, I will tell you how you can get the PDF tutorial download. Because if you're like me, I like to have those PDFs that I can refer back to over and over year after year. And I'll share with you at the end how you can get that for today's one sheet wonder demonstration. I'm going to start off by saying I'm using the Winter Meadow Designer Series paper. Some of you may already own this. If you don't, it is still available in our online store. It came out last year about this time. And while it's called Winter Meadow, I've used some of the sheets of DSP throughout the year. And I chose this one today. Now, this one is non-directional. One sheet wonders are easiest when you're using non-directional paper. When you are using directional paper, you just have to pay a little bit more attention to your card layouts to make sure they're in the correct horizontal or vertical position, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do with my 12 by 12 sheet is cut it into strips. And I'm going to start at 4 inches. And the next one I'll cut at 3 inches. And then that leaves a 5-inch by 12-inch piece for the last strip. And let me put these over here. And now I'm going to cut each of these strips down into pieces that I will use for my cards. So I'm going to turn my 4-inch by 12-inch sheet to the horizontal position, and I'm going to cut at 5 1/4 inches twice. Okay, 5 1/4 inches twice. And I will have this 4-inch by 1.5-inch piece left. And I'm actually going to be using the back side of it. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it over right now. Now on each of these 2 pieces, one I'm going to score at 1 inch from the bottom. And the other at 1 inch from the top. Now, since my paper is non-directional, the 1 and 2 inch doesn't really, or the 1 inch scored from the top and bottom doesn't really matter. I'm really doing both the same thing since it's a non-directional paper. This would make a difference if you were using a directional paper. So that's why I'm saying it that way. Okay, so I'll set these pieces aside. As I'm going through all of the cutting, I like to lay my pieces out in order, okay? That makes it really easy to follow along with the card sketches when you do that. So my 3-inch by 12-inch piece in the horizontal position. I'm going to cut at 4 inches twice. And I'll put these first 2 pieces aside. But the next one, I'm going to turn back to the vertical position, and I'm going to cut at 1 inch increments. So then I'll be left with 3 strips that measure 1 inch by 4 inches. Just like that. And I'll set those aside. Again, setting my pieces aside in order of how I'm cutting them. Then I'll turn the 5 inch by 12 inch piece to the horizontal position, and I'm going to cut at 3/4 of an inch. Set that aside. Then I'm going to cut again at 3/4 of an inch. But this piece I'm going to do a little more cut, make 2 more cuts with it. I'm going to cut 1/2 inch off each long side, and those will be flipped over when I use them. Okay, so I'm left with a 2 1/4 by 5 inch piece, and then 2 pieces that measure 5 inches by 1/2 inch. And those will be used for card G. And then I have this piece left over, which measures 5 by 4.5. So now I have to think a second here. 5 by 4.5. Okay, I need to turn this back. So the 5 inch side, or the longer side, is at the top. Okay, my 5 inches is at the top. I'm going to cut at 2 inches. And then, oh, and I just cut the wrong direction. Okay, I said that wrong, didn't I? Let me think about this a second. 5. Yeah, I cut that the wrong direction. I have to check 2, 3, 4, 5. I feel like I'm off on something here. Let me do a quick check, people. Okay, I cut it 3/4 of an inch, and then 2, 3 1/4. Oh, this is where I went wrong, I think. Okay, hold on, friends, hold on. I've got another sheet of a paper, and I'm going to recut the 3rd strip for you. I want to make sure I get it right for you to follow along. I know some of you do these when I'm making them. So I'm just going to jump to that 3rd row. It's 5 inches. Okay. I'm going to turn it and cut at 3 3/4 inches. And for the next part, for card G, I'm just going to cut those 3 pieces in order. And each of these 3 pieces will be used for card G. So I'm going to cut it 1/2 inch, and then 2 1/4, and then 1/2 inch again. So the mistake I made before was I cut this whole piece at 3 3/4, and it should have been 3 1/4. Those 1/2 inch strips I'm going to flip over, and then all of these are being used for card G. Now, this is correct. So now I have a 5 inch by 5 inch piece left over, okay? This does not matter which side I'm cutting from, because it's non-directional paper. If you had non-directional, or if you had a directional paper, you would want to turn it the other way, turn it 90 degrees. And I'm going to cut at 2 inches. So this 2" by 5" strip will be used for card H. And then I've got a 3" by 5" piece left, and I'm going to cut at 1" increments. I even had my little cheat sheet right next to me here on the left, but I obviously looked at the wrong dimension before, but no worries. Okay, and then these 3 will be used for card I. So now I'm going to go through and make each of these 9 cards with you. Because of the amount of time and the number of cards we make with this One Sheet Wonder, I have already made all of my, get these here, I've already made up all of my card bases, okay? I've already put the white insert inside, and then any additional pieces of cardstock I've already cut. I also have all of my sentiments ready. Of course, you can use any sentiments you want on these One Sheet Wonder cards. And I just forgot the name of the one I'm using. It'll come to me. It'll come to me before we get there. So sincere, so sincere. Okay, so this will just keep the time passing quickly. So we'll put the cards together, then we'll add sentiments and finish off with embellishments, okay? Because of course, the most important part of the One Sheet Wonder is how you cut the DSP and then the card sketches. So this is card sketch A. And the first thing I'm going to do is, I don't need that really, put down this piece of Lost Lagoon cardstock onto my Blueberry Bushel card base. And this piece of cardstock measures 4 inches by 2 inches. Now, this is the first piece I cut from the One Sheet Wonder. And remember, I made a score line at the bottom of it. I'm just going to fold that up to reveal the back side. And then I'm just going to tack it down with some adhesive. I should put this over here closer. And then I'm going to adhere this to, you know what? I'm discombobbled today. I will say that. I just got off a training call before I jumped on here. And so now I was rushing and so sorry. For card A, this should be at the bottom. It's the same size, 4 inches by 2 inches. Okay, so I'm doing card sketch A, 4 inches by 2 inches at the bottom. Then I'm going to take this piece with the flap that I folded over and sealed. Do you ever have a day like that where everything just feels a little off? I feel like I've had several of those days lately. Maybe because it was sick and I wasn't into my usual work routine. I'm not sure. But anyways, we're all good. We're all good. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that because I want you to see how all of the different card layouts come together. So again, I'm using a Blueberry Bushel card base, got my white in the center. I've adhered a 4 inch by 2 inch piece of Lost Lagoon to the top. And then this is that second piece of DSP cut from my One Sheet Wonder. And if you'll remember, I scored at 1 inch from the top of it. And you can do top or bottom, you know, which end you're scoring at doesn't really matter if you're doing using non-directional paper. It matters when you start using directional pieces, all right? So again, I'm just going to adhere that flap down. And then I'm going to adhere this piece to my card front with that flap at the top. And when I'm laying these pieces, I'm looking to see that I have an even margin of the blueberry bushel cardstock on the 3 sides, and then there is part that will overlap that Lost Lagoon piece, okay? So that'll be card B. And then for card C, I'm using this piece that was left over from that first strip, right? The 4-inch by 12-inch piece, and I said we were going to use the back side of it. Then I'm going to use one of my 3-inch by 4-inch pieces that was cut from that 3 by 12 strip. And have my blueberry bushel card base with the white inside already. And then I have a piece of shaded spruce, which is measuring 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 inches. Okay, 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 inches. And I'm going to adhere my 3-inch by 4-inch DSP right to that. If you're using the liquid glue, it gives you a little time to kind of slide your pieces into place. I often use the Stampin seal, but they both work very well. You just get a little more wiggle room, a little extra time to play with your pieces when you use the multi-purpose glue. Then I'm going to take this piece. Again, I want the back side facing up. So putting my adhesive on the opposite side, and I'm just going to go right across my card. You don't have to measure. The top is approximately at halfway from the top of the card. Okay, halfway from top of the card base. Or you could say, you know, the bottom is approximately, it looks like 3/4 an inch. Okay, again, you don't have to, be exact, and you don't have to measure. Keep it simple. Okay, keep it very, very simple. That's the name of the game for me. Okay, moving on to card D, which is similar. I'm using that second piece of 3-inch by 4-inch DSP cut from my One Sheet Wonder. And again, I'm going to adhere that to a piece of shaded spruce cardstock that measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 inches. And then I'm going to take these layers and add them to this piece of Lost Lagoon cardstock. And it measures 3 3/8 inches by 4 3/8 inches. So 3 3/8 by 4 3/8. So it's going to have a little bit smaller margin of the Lost Lagoon around those 2 layers. And then I'll just put this on my card front, centering it. And next is card sketch E. And I'm using the 3 1-inch by 4-inch strips I cut from the One Sheet Wonder, okay? excuse me, I like to keep those in the order. So if I push them together, they look like a completed picture, right? Oh, Julie, you're so funny. I hope the world does affiliate One Sheet Wonders with me because I love doing them and I love sharing them. So thank you for that. I'm going to add these 3 pieces to my Shaded Spruce cardstock. Shaded Spruce here measures, let me double check, 3.5 by 4.25 inches. 3.5 by 4.25 inches. I simply love this grid with the measurements on each side for me to do quick checks like that. And when I have 3 pieces like this, I like to adhere the ones on each end first, and then center the last one in the middle. And this just helps me a little bit to get everything centered with even margins of the cardstock around and between each piece. And again, it helps to use the liquid glue to be able to slide those pieces around. And then finally, I'll add these layers to my Lost Lagoon, which measures 3 5/8 inches by 4 3/8 inches. Okay, 5 3/8 by 5, 3 5/8 inches by 4 3/8. Okay, 3 5/8 by 4, 3 5/8 by 4 3/8. Oh, that's a mouthful. It's a good thing I have my little cheat sheet there. And then this I'll put right in the center of my card front. Just like that. I sure need a manicure, don't I? It's just been a super busy week and I haven't had time to go. I'll get it done sooner or later. It's a good thing I'm not too vain, right? Okay. Moving on. Now we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, 5 cards. And now I'm moving on to card sketch F. This card is going to be a horizontal card. And if you have cut your paper, if you're using directional paper and you follow these instructions, you will be fine. Okay? Non-directional, we can turn them either way. But I designed this One Sheet Wonder that if you are using directional paper, everything will still come out right just by following instructions. Okay, so I'm going to use my 5" by 3 3/4 inch piece of DSP cut from that last strip, of my One Sheet Wonder. And my Shaded Spruce measures 5 1/8 inch by 3 7/8. 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. And then I will add this to my card front. Just wait till you see. These look simple right now, but wait till you see how they are finished off with sentiments and embellishments. I'll be like, wow. Robin, I'm happy to hear you say that you don't get intimidated by my One Sheet Wonders. When I set out to do this series, that was very, very important to me, that people felt comfortable doing what I was showing them, that you would walk away from this and be able to duplicate exactly what I just did, okay? I like to keep crafting simple. Sometimes we like to do the wow with gazillion layers and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes we have a desire to do that. Most often I am creating fairly simple projects for you because I want everybody to be able to do these and feel confident. And when you're finished, to feel proud of what you did. Okay. So next, this is card G I'm working on. I have a 5" by 3 3/4" piece of blueberry bushel. And then I have these 3 pieces that I've cut from the One Sheet Wonder. I put adhesive on that middle one. On the 1/2" strips, I want that blue side facing up. And I'm going to place these 1/2" strips so that there's a little bit of the cardstock showing above the top strip and below this bottom strip. They look pretty straight, pretty even. And now I'm going to adhere the 5" by 2 1/4" piece to that. It's not real straight. Okay. And then, yes, keep it simple. I like to say kiss and sip. Keep it simple stamping with stamps, ink, and paper. And when you think about it, that's where we all started, right? That's where we all started. And then I'm going to add my layers to a piece of Lost Lagoon that measures 5 1/4 by 4 inches. 5 1/4 by 4 inches. If you like clean and simple cards, okay, I said that wrong. Mary, come on. 5 3/8 inch, 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. Oof. Okay, Lost Lagoon is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and that is how I got that very small margin showing. Okay. And then I'm moving on now to, we have 2 cards left to make. So this is card H. Here's my 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of Lost Lagoon. I'm putting this on my blueberry bushel card front. You can see too that even my card sketches are simple. Even my card sketches are simple. And I also kept this process simple by using the same colors repeatedly. And that is Blueberry Bushel, Lost Lagoon, and Shaded Spruce. And the name of the DSP is Winter Meadow. It's been around for a year. Some of you may already own it. If you don't own it and you want it, it can be found in the online store. Okay, in the online store. So this 2 inch by 5 inch piece, I'm adding to a layer of shaded spruce that measures 2 1/4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. And I'm going to adhere this right down the center of my card front. And then the last card sketch is card sketch I. And I'm using my 3 1-inch by 5-inch pieces. And again, I like to place these in order along the front of my card. I have cut 3 pieces of shaded spruce that measure 1 1/4 by 5 1/4 inches. 1 1/4 by 5 1/4 inches. The beauty of liquid glue gives us that time to move our strips around. Okay. And you can see by keeping my strips in order in the direction I adhered them to the shaded spruce strips. Whoops, come on. You can see they still fit together like a puzzle, right? You still can see that whole image. Again, I've got 3 strips. I'm going to start by adhering left, right, and then the centerpiece last. And when I finish, I should have equal margins of the blueberry bushel showing in and around each strip. And notice too, I'm not measuring when I'm laying these pieces out. I'm eyeballing it and then just relying on that multi-purpose glue to let me slide my pieces around to get them in place just where I want them. And I think that looks good. Okay, so now we have finished creating the cards. Okay, the card bases. I'll go through them real quickly. So, and you can, I'll do this in rows so that you can kind of see how they correlate, the cards correlate with the way we cut the DSP. So cards A and B, and then card C, I used the last bit, 1 1/2 by 4 inches from the first row, and then 3 inch by 4 inch, 3 inch by 4 inch, and then here, 3 inch by 4 inch, and then I cut that down into 1 inch pieces, okay? Then for the last row, whoops, we're kind of out of the viewing area. Sorry about that. I used the 5 inch by 3 1/4 inch piece, and then each of the 1/2 inch strips with the 5 by 2 1/4 inch strip, and then the last bit of the DSP was a 5 by 5 square that I've cut into 2 by 5, and then 3 strips of 1 by 5 inch. Okay, so let's gather these up. And then I'll show you how I finished off these cards. But I have to set my samples back in place too. So give me a second to do that. Make sure they're in order. Okay. So for card A, and again, I already have my sentiment stamped and punched or die cut, what have you, okay? Just to keep things moving along for you. Because I bet you're kind of eager to go off on your own and start making these. So again, these cards are all from the So Sincere stamp set. I'm going to grab it for you. Okay, but again, you can use, and I've used all different ones, you can use any sentiments you want. So when you get my PDFs that include a One Sheet Wonder template and the card sketches, which my daughter Andrea does a great job making for me, we do not put any sizes, dimensions for the sentiments, because the idea is you're going to use what you have, right? Jean, the DSP is called Winter Meadow. Winter Meadow. So hope your day is a happy one. Okay, that's card sketch A. And then card sketch B is very similar. And this one says, just love spending time with you. And I really do. I love spending time with all of you. I honestly very much look forward to my Facebook Lives. The connections and the friendships, all that good stuff. And even the chatter at times. Okay, so you can see these two are very similar, right? You could actually make two of the same if you wanted, but I like to give you some options if I can. So card A and card B. For card C, I've stamped my, and by the way, these first two, I used, let me think, 2 inches, 2 and 2 1/4 inch circle punches. But like I said, you need to adjust your card for the sentiments you choose to use, okay? And this one I stamped So Very Proud of You in Blueberry Bushel and punched it with a 1 1/2 inch circle punch, layered it onto 1 3/4 inch circle, and then I punched shaded spruce cardstock with the Labeled with Love punch. So sometimes it's fun just to like kind of mix and match our punches and maybe use some of those punches as backgrounds or embellishments for parts of our card or an extra layer on sentiments. And here's my next one. I love the variety. I love the variety of sentiments. So my goal was to use as many different ones as I can here. So I've cut a piece of 3 inch by 1 inch white cardstock and I stamped my sentiment, "Your kindness is so appreciated." And I missed putting dimensionals on that. And then I just finished it off. The couple of cards that I put the silver and white 1/2 inch ribbon on, or used the ribbon, I've already adhered those. Okay. So that was finished off very nicely. And then I am now on card E, card sketch E. And this time I used the Labeled with Love punch with my sentiment, directly to stamp the sentiment and punch it, okay? And then I have I think it's 3/4 inch, yes. Let me double check that too. 3 1/4 inch by 3/4 inch strip of the Blueberry Bushel. Keeping in mind that Blueberry Bushel strip may or may not fit with whatever sentiment you use if you're choosing something different than this one. And I already put some, I guess maybe I did. I already put some rhinestones on there, 3 small rhinestones. Sometimes I just can't stop myself, right? Okay, I love this. Love, love, love this. So I have a 1 1/4 inch by 3 3/4 inch piece of the blueberry bushel. I've stamped my sentiment with blueberry bushel ink again and punched with the modern oval punch. Okay, modern oval punch. And then I just took some of that pretty silver and white sheer ribbon and put it on the back of the punched piece. And I adhered that with dimensionals to my blueberry bushel strip. Nancy Clark, I believe that ribbon is in the annual catalog. I believe it's in the annual catalog. I could be wrong. But I also like, if I'm looking for something, I like to go directly to my online store and put it in the search, silver and white ribbon, and it'll pop up. So sometimes that's easier to find things than looking in each catalog. Just a tip. You can take it or leave it. I work on my computer so much with my business that a lot of times it's just easier to type it in the Stampin' Up! Search. Okay. Card G. I like these ones too. So when you're doing this particular one sheet wonder, keep in mind that if you can use a sheet of paper that you like both sides of and that complement one another is very helpful. Okay. Len, thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay. I happen to love this vertical happy birthday stamp. A lot of people don't like these, but you know what? It is super easy to use. Look at this. I just had a 1/2 inch strip of basic white, and I cut it so that it is, let me double check, 3 3/4 inches high or long. Okay. 1/2 inch, 3 3/4. I stamped this. It could have been stamped right in the middle, but I stamped mine closer to the bottom edge because I knew I wanted to put a bow at the top. Okay. And then the piece of blueberry bushel cardstock measures 1 inch by 3 3/4 inch. But it really is not hard to use those, and we don't have them very often, but if you get that vertical sentiment, this is something I like to do. 1/2 inch strip, easy peasy. Okay. And then, okay, I'm getting my piles mixed up here. Make sure I'm in the right place. Okay. Card H, use that 2 inch by 5 inch piece from the One Sheet Wonder. And I love this sentiment from the So Sincere stamp set. You're in my heart and prayers. This could be used for so many things. So many things. Right? Sympathy, get well. Somebody's going through a difficult time and needs some support. If you're just missing somebody and thinking about them a lot, right? So I love it. And I decided this is from the Hearts of Elegant die set. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a new online product that launched on Tuesday, November 5th. Hearts of Elegance bundle. And you can even check out the Marbled Elegance suite, which it's a part of. But with this sentiment, I knew right away I wanted to use a die cut heart to show it off. And then I just adhered it to a blueberry bushel circle. And that's the 2 3/8 inch circle, I believe. And I'm just going to adhere that right in the center of my card front. And as you can see, I added one large rhinestone to that heart. And then for card H, I also finished it off with a sentiment layered onto a circle. Hope you're feeling better soon. Punched with Labeled with Love. And let me check. This also was the 2 3/8 inch circle punch. And this one I'm just going to put closer to the bottom. And with these, you can put near the top, near the bottom, in the center. Just whatever feels good to you. Okay. Now, as you can see, whoops. Make sure I have all these. Okay. I've got my piles of samples and my piles of, make sure I have all 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Perfect. Now I'm going to add some rhinestones to some of those cards that I did not embellish previously. So on this first one, take your pick tool. And I'm using the putty end to pick up a large rhinestone to put on each side of the punched circles. Okay. Take your pick tool. Easy pickup and perfect placement of your embellishments. Wonderful. Okay. And then for this one, I bet you thought I was going to do the very same thing, right? I'm not, because I like to show you different things, show you alternatives. So I'm going to take a small one, and I'm going to do one on each side first. Gives me a better visual. And then I'm going to add 2 more on each side and place them so they look kind of like they're on the curve of that circle. Okay, just like that. Super easy and a little bit different way of using our embellishments. Okay, sometimes we just need to think outside the box a bit. Okay. For this next one, I'm going to place one small rhinestone in this little cutout section, each of the cutout sections made with the Labeled with Love punch. Okay. Other ways you could do that, you could put one here and one here. You could build out some here. You know, there are lots of ways to use our embellishments. This was the way I embellished card D. Just tied a knot with a small strip of the silver and white sheer ribbon. It's really pretty. That's gorgeous ribbon. And it's very, very easy to work with because there's not much bulk to it. And card E, I already finished off with 3 small rhinestones right on the sentiment tag. This one I finished with the ribbon behind the sentiment and then adhered both to a piece of the blueberry bushel cardstock. Does everybody know how to do this with the ribbon? If not, I can show that at the end. I'm going to put it here just And go ahead and respond. Would you like, do you need to, or would you like to see a demonstration of how I did the ribbon like that on the back? Some of you I know, many of you probably already know it. This one too, I already embellished with a bow made with that same silver and white sheer ribbon. I'm glad you like the ribbon knot, Stella. Sometimes people think that when we use ribbon, they have to make a bow. You don't always have to use it with a bow. Sometimes a simple knot is enough to do it. Okay, here, just that one large rhinestone on the heart. And then for this last one, I'm going to do the same thing as before and put a small rhinestone in each of the cutout pieces, each of the cutout areas, I should say, around the labeled with love punched piece. Okay. Len, my bows, it's just a work in progress. And actually I can do a quick demonstration of that as well. Let me push these things out of the way. I'm going to put these here because we'll review them really quickly. But let me grab my ribbon. And I'm going to use the modern oval punch just like I used on the card, but you can do this with any punch. You can also do it with die cut pieces. Okay, that doesn't matter. And I'm actually, I'm going to use a different color just so that you can see it a little bit better. How about this bubble bath? So say, for example, I've already stamped my sentiments and I punched it out with the modern oval punch. And now I want to add some of that fun swirly ribbon to the back. What I do is, and I prefer to use my seal for this. If you don't have Stampin' Seal or some kind of snail adhesive, roller adhesive, I would use the, what's it called? The tear and tape. Tear and tape. You want something that's double-sided, okay? Then I just lay the ribbon in my fingers, okay, closed fingers, and I leave a couple inches hanging at the bottom. And then I just wrap it, most times just twice. Sometimes 3, but it can be a little bulky or cumbersome, depending on what you're putting it behind. Or if I was using, say, for example, that gold twisted thread, I might go around 3 or 4 times. Just depends, all right? You don't want to overdo it. You want enough to give the effect, but you don't want to overdo it. And again, I'm leaving a couple inches on the end, on the top. So now I've got the end on the top and the end on the bottom. And I kind of try to hold it in the middle and pull it off my fingers. And just like that, I don't really do much to it. And I just kind of lay it right across like that. Oops. And the tricky part is you don't always get the pieces caught on the adhesive. Okay, but you get the idea. I went a little low. Sometimes on this one, I went more diagonal and I used less ribbon. So let me show you that. And you can see where this was almost a bit too much, right? So let me show you this one in particular. Start with that tail, a couple inches hanging below your fingers. Wrap it once, and now I'm going to cut. So again, how many times you wrap the ribbon or the thread or baker's twine, whatever you're using, is really dependent on the look you want, okay? Also, how thick or thin it is makes a difference in how many times you loop. But look how easy that is. And isn't it pretty? And then I just cut my ends off a little bit. You're probably thinking, but Mary, if you're cutting the ends off, why did you leave the extra? I do that because it gives me more wiggle room, okay, if I wanted to adjust something. And depending on how far my loops are, I might have cut these a little longer or a little shorter. That's why I do it, okay? I have found that too often people, and if you can leave your ribbon on the bolt, I would always do that. You're going to save on your ribbon in the long run. The reason I say that is oftentimes somebody will think, well, I'm going to need about 8 inches to do that. And they go ahead and cut their 8 inches and they realize, oh, I'm a little short. Like that would definitely be short. That's my 8 inches. It's too small. Or they're making a bow. Oh, it's really hard. I wish I had a little bit more ribbon on that strip. So I always like to leave mine on the bolt when I can. Okay. And in the long run, you know, people think if they're cutting a strip and then doing it, they're saving. Oftentimes you're actually wasting because if you don't cut it long enough, you have to cut a new piece. Okay. That's my theory. All right. Now this is a little long for my knot. I usually do something about like this. Again, it depends on the ribbon or trim that you're using. And just a simple knot. That's all it is. And my suggestion here, or tip, is don't pull it too tight, okay? If it's a twine or a baker's twine or linen thread, something like that, yes, pull it tight because you don't want it to come undone, and that's real thin. But with a ribbon, pull it tight enough that it stays, but not so tight that you end up with that tiny little knot. Okay, I just think it looks a little bit nicer and it gives you a little bit more area to put your mini glue dot on. And because if somebody hasn't already asked about bows, I'm going to show you how I make them. Because I get asked this often. And people will say to me, Mary, your bows are so beautiful. I can never get mine to look like that. What I'm going to tell you is mine rarely look beautiful or the way I want them to the first time I pull the ribbons, okay? Again, with this, I like to make sure I have enough tail. I call it the tail, the end of the ribbon. I hold the ribbon in my forefinger and thumb, make a loop, and then hold that back piece also in my forefinger and thumb. And for me, it's just like tying a shoe. I tie these the same way I tie my shoe, okay? I'm going to pull that ribbon from the back and around, and then I'm going to use my thumb and push the ribbon through that loop on the back side. And this is so sheer, and my fingers, there we go. Okay, now you can see, there it is. I won't put this on a card. But look what I do to fix it. I just play, and again, this is where you want enough tail to start with, and leaving it on your bolt helps. And I just keep adjusting by pulling on those tails and or pulling on the loops until I get the bow like I want it, especially the size of it. Some things you don't want huge bows. Some you do, some you don't. So depending on the size. And I do pull it tight, but then I'll still adjust a little bit after that. Okay? So if you tie a bow and you think, well, I don't like it, or it didn't turn out as nice as Mary's or Susie Stamper's or whatever, just keep playing with it. Okay? Just keep playing with it. And again, you can tie it just like you tie your shoes. Of course, that's assuming everybody ties their shoes the same way, isn't it? And then I like to trim off the ends at an angle. I will tell you too, trimming at an angle, there's less chance of your ribbon fraying. Okay, the ends of your bows fraying, or the ends of your knots fraying, that sort of thing, if you cut at an angle. Alrighty, so a little impromptu ribbon demonstration, but let's go ahead and go back through all 9 of our cards. Okay, card A, card B, very similar, card C, and again, I've used a piece from the first strip I cut from the One Sheet Wonder and the second strip I cut from the One Sheet Wonder. And then card D and card E. And remember this too, all of these started as that 3-inch by 12-inch strip of the One Sheet Wonder. And then these, let me push those out of the way. These were from my 5-inch strip of the DSP. So now you can kind of see how they all fit together from how I cut that 12 by 12 designer series paper. Okay, any questions? Yes, Donna, liquid glue works just as well as the Stampin' seal for layering. Time left to hit the thumbs up button. Thank you so much, Deb. Okay, I'm going to scroll back and see if I missed any questions. I know there were a couple that popped up. I think I got them answered. All right. How about if I give away a couple of these cards that I made in this Facebook Live? If you would like to have your name put into the drawing to receive one of these cards, type in the comments now. What should we do? How about November OSW? November OSW. OSW meaning One Sheet Wonder. Okay, November OSW. And I'll give a couple of these away. Does anybody have a favorite? Oh, one more thing to mention. Actually, 2 more. The one thing is, with the One Sheet Wonder template, you're going to get all 9 card sketches. You don't have to use the card sketches just when you use the One Sheet Wonder. There's no reason you can't make or use the same card sketch by itself. Okay? Keep that in mind. So there's a lot of value in that. Now, how do you get the PDF tutorial for this One Sheet Wonder template and the 9 card sketches and the instructions, and cutting dimensions for all 9 cards? The first way is to place an order with me, Stampin' Up! Order of at least $50 before shipping and tax, and I will send you the PDF tutorial free. Also has cutting color photos and a supply list in the DSP. So a lot of value in that. If you shop with somebody else or you're a demonstrator and you shop with yourself, getting your Stampin' Up! Discount, which we all love, all of us demonstrators love that, you can purchase the PDF tutorial at stampinpiece.com. Look for shop in the pink menu bar and go right down to the bottom and click PDF tutorials. And that will open up my PDF store. Now, I will tell you, as of today, this PDF tutorial is on page 13 in the PDF store. That may change. If you're seeing this video far into the future right now, it will likely be on a different page. The name of the paper is Winter Meadow. So if you go to the online, the PDF store to purchase the PDF, you're going to look for Winter Meadow 12 inch by 12 inch one sheet wonder cards. Okay. All of the PDFs I sell are in alphabetical order. So sometimes it will, you know, you're going to open it up. It's not going to be on the first page. The page numbers are at the bottom and you can click through the page numbers, or you can put in Winter Meadow into the search box and have it come up that way. Alrighty. Sometimes people get confused when they go, when I, do something like this or a class to go and they don't want the class, but they do want the PDF. They expect it to appear on the right when they open up the PDF store. And that's very unlikely because of the number of PDFs I have available to purchase. Okay. So Winter Meadow 12 by 12 one sheet wonder cards. All right. That's the name of the PDF. So you can purchase it for $18 at stampinpiece.com, or I will send it to you free when you place a Stampin' Up! Order with me of $50 or more before shipping and tax during the month of November 2024. Okay. And if anybody, in fact, I think I've already sent them. If anybody, and this is true for each month, if somebody orders at the beginning of the month before I do the demonstration, they still get it. Okay, it's any time from the first of the month to the last day of the month. Alrighty. Gee, I'm glad you were here. I think I answered all the questions. Again, Winter Meadow is the name of the DSP. And I think people already did put, now the computer's frozen. Okay, don't know why that's going on. There we go. We answered the question about the silver and white sheer ribbon. Len confirmed it's in the annual catalog. Also, who was that? Nancy Clark? Somebody, Kathleen Avery. You put your favorite, Kathy Kelly, your favorite is Happy Birthday. That's so funny because when I was making the one sheet wonder and I had just the card bases made, I wasn't sure I was going to like this in the end. And then when I thought to use the Happy Birthday vertical stamp on it, now it's kind of become my favorite. And I really like this one too because of the ribbon behind it. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. Kathleen Avery says, nice set of cards. That reminded me that a one-sheet wonder, a set of one-sheet wonder cards is a great thing to give as a gift. Okay, it's not going to cost you a lot. It's not going to take a lot of time. We use a limited number of supplies, and you're going to give away this really nice set of cards to someone. Okay. Carol, thank you. And, Carol, I received a card from you recently. I appreciate that so much. In fact, I've got a little stack of cards up here on my shelf that I need to take a picture of and thank everybody virtually for those. I am feeling better. The bronchitis is hanging on just a tiny bit. So I'd say I'm like 95, 98% better that way. Tremors are still what they are. Yesterday was a really hard day with tremors. Actually, all week was. And I get a little frustrated because it takes me longer to do everything with my hands shaking, but it's not my first health priority right now. That my first is getting my back, taken care of. And that surgery, I don't know if I mentioned it here on Stampin' Piece with Mary Knabe or not, but I'll be having back surgery on December 3rd. So between now and the end of the year, I will do my best to keep my typical Facebook Live schedule. I may be doing some videos because I'm supposed to be taking it easy for 4 weeks after. Not the easiest thing for me to do. But I'm kind of thinking ahead that I'll do some posts and maybe even add some videos or put in some throwback videos, that sort of thing. Because I don't want you to go weeks without hearing from me. And of course, I'll want to hear from you. All right, everybody, have a great day and a great weekend. And I will see you next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for another fun creative project. Bye-bye.